Hello, sweet friends, and welcome to The Way Through. I'm your host, Bonnie Worth, here on the Empower channel, and I have another really big conversation to have with you here today. And it's been something for me, it took me a long time to see very clearly in my own life, and that is about how helping becomes hiding, because I believe it's woven into, or was woven into who I thought I was. And so I really couldn't tell the difference between where the conditioning really ran in my own life. When I was a kid, being helpful really wasn't a choice. It was a strategy. In my house, if we were busy, if we were doing something that was useful, we were less likely to be in the line of fire. So helpfulness became a kind of currency. It's what bought me safety or bought us safety. It was a version of love that was obviously it was conditional. It felt conditional because it was conditional. If you were good, you had value. If you were seen helping or serving or being available for someone else's needs, that was rewarded with the within the exchange. So I got really good at being needed. Now, being needed did something for me emotionally as well. And of course, being a kid, I couldn't really name that at the time, but it gave me a sense of place. It gave me a reason for life, for being, for, my role even in the family. I also began to long it was, there was a longing to be needed. And as long as I was needed, I didn't have to wonder if what was going to happen, or if I was just wanted, if for being myself. I mean, the need that was something I never was questioned. I didn't have to wonder, about that. The need was always answered before that question would ever have come up. So it gave me a strange kind of control. And that's especially important in a house or in a home that can feel very unpredictable. I couldn't control what was happening around me, but at least I could control how useful I was. And that usefulness felt like a closet, something that I had access to that would provide me the walls of safety. Now, when I got old enough, here's an example of this. When I got old enough to drive, it was even before I had a license. So I was old enough to drive. I knew how to drive, but I wasn't legally able to drive. But what I would do is I would take my dad's pickup truck and I would go out into the field where, of course, you don't need a license to drive. But I would take the pickup truck out into the field and I would go out and begin to haul bales without him even asking me to do that. Nobody had to tell me to do it. I would just go. I would just get in the truck. I would go out and begin to haul bales. Um, I was the good girl. I was proving something without even realizing it. Another example of it is especially once all my other siblings, left home and I was, the one at home. I would clean the house as though it was my responsibility, as if it was my home. It was it's like as if the home depended on how well I could anticipate what was needed. Now, this was even when I was younger as well. This kind of watching the hypervigilance of just trying to anticipate where I'd be needed, how I could help, what could be done. Now, again, um, when I think of it, I have a job and career now where I have the privilege of helping other people. So in some way, I don't want to take away or negate that, responsibility or what those experiences taught me. What I'm speaking about here is the fact is if I wasn't helping, that's when I would be terrified that something would happen if I wasn't busy. I was afraid that in any moment, if I wasn't taking care of something, that the whole world would implode around me. So it became this conditioned response or this conditioned way of living. And so I really want you to sit with this. There's a distinction here. And I really, it's really what the whole episode is built on. But there became a version of me that believed that helping was who I was, right? Nobody sat me down and said to me, if you're helpful, you won't get punished. It was never spoken. It was in what I witnessed, in the aftermath of what happened when one of us would get caught not working, if we got caught resting, if we got caught having fun. And it's like all of those things could be okay, but as long as there was some kind of task attached to it. And I pause on okay because even that's questionable. But I did watch consequences and I watched how consequences landed. And I felt them in my own body. I felt, even though there maybe wasn't a language for what I was learning, it became this unspoken rule, the kind that doesn't, where nothing needs to be said out loud. It's just because everyone in the house already knows the rule. And it was also absorbed, right? So it's not just of what I witnessed with my eyes, but it's like the information that registered in my entire system. So it registered within the nervous system, it registered within my energetic body. And the body doesn't file information the way the mind does. It stores the lesson as if you could recite it back easily, right? It stores the felt sense, the bracing, the readiness. It's something that lives in the tissue of, around in the cells of the body, and it's in the energy field long after that moment has passed. So that's really how conditioning works, right? We take it on. We don't, it's not like someone asked permission, but it installs itself in our body as a survival paradigm, and it runs quietly underneath our life. It's what kind of leads us in making our decisions, decisions for ourselves that we think are ours, but underneath it, there's a whole different paradigm going on. Now, I think the other piece here too, it's like this is to understand here is that there is a version of what can be possible for us that can come from overflow, from a genuine capacity where we can help and support other people. But there's also a version of helping that comes from fear. And that's information in our energy system, in our nervous system that decided we made the decision from a very early time in our life that being useful is how to stay safe. Being useful, being helpful is how to stay loved. It's how you stay in the good graces of people whose approval you need in order to survive. And so the version of, this genuine capacity to help other people from overflow becomes very diluted because everything is operating from the fear-based consciousness of what it means to be safe or to keep safety in the currency of the life experience. So, what is the paradigm underneath the behavior? Well, this is really where I want to break it down because I think this can often be where we get stuck. We try to change our behavior. We recognize something in our life, and we see these habits and these behaviors, and so we try to curve the behavior. But very often, we never look at the paradigm that's actually generating it. Knowing the behavior, recognizing our behaviors, is important. But so as an example, recognizing the behavior, my behavior was helping, but the paradigm underneath it was something more like, I am not inherently safe. I am not inherently loved. My value has to be earned, and it has to be earned through what I do for others. So I was busy helping, right? I'm helping this person, helping here, helping over here, feeling useful, feeling like I had value, but there was so much more that was going on underneath it. And those are beliefs you don't argue with, right? Because they were formed they were never formed at a level of something of the belief of the conscious mind. They were formed at the level of the nervous system. They were formed at the level of the body learning at a very young age what kept danger away. And so the underneath that felt, the fear of punishment became something that was even more foundational because the fear of punishment, but underneath it was the fear of abandonment. Because for a child, being cast out of favor with a parent isn't just uncomfortable, it's existential. And as children, we depend on the connection to our parents to survive. So if that thread of connection, comes up in any way, it registers in our system, in our body, in the energy, in the thoughts and beliefs as a threat to life itself. So this is also where I recognize, for myself, I mean, there's many stories that fall into place here. This is where codependency really starts to take root. And I really want to be clear about something when I talk about this because I think that codependency gets very misunderstood. Codependency, in how I understand it and in how I help and support my clients in overcoming and healing the impact of this core wound. It's not a behavior. It's not just about people pleasing. It's not about being a pushover. Codependency becomes a conditioned identity that's built on surviving, of the I am not safe, so I need to do these things in order to survive and be safe. It's a self that gets constructed by staying very attuned to everyone else's needs, very aware of everyone else's moods and how to move through the room, how to move through life by recognizing the moods of other people, and also looking at the things that we do in order to earn everyone else's approval. And of course, it's at the expense of our own internal needs and desires and, of what is truth. It's even at the I would say at the expense of what is the deeper truth. But once that identity forms, it doesn't stay contained in childhood. It becomes the operating system into our adulthood unless something interrupts it. So for me, the operating system carried straight into my adult life, and it didn't look like fear. It looked like generosity. It looked like being the one that everyone could count on. It looked like being endlessly available, endlessly capable, always there, always being the one that people could rely on when life required help and support. Or even when, instead of maybe them taking responsibility in their own lives, I was the one who was there. And so from the outside, that reads as strength. Look how strong she is, look at and, recognized, right? Praised for it. People admired it. But what it did, it also reinforced the paradigm, because now that good girl who hauled the bales and did all these things without being asked in order to stay safe became the woman who could hold everyone else's world together without ever asking for help in holding my own world. And that's what I refer to as a spiritual bypass. Now, maybe it's a spiritual bypass that nobody talks about or has referenced in that way before. But this is the part I really want to sit in on here because I don't think this gets said enough, that helping others becomes a spiritual bypass. We tend to think of spiritual bypassing as something that looks obviously spiritual, using meditation, positive thinking to avoid something painful, putting on rose-colored glasses. If I am just, if I'm positive and I have positive thoughts, I'm going to get positive results in my life. If I meditate for longer periods of time, if I'm consistent with my meditation practice, everything in my life is just going to be Zen. I'm choosing Zen over reaction, or choosing Zen over instead of, it's like this Zen state over being angry, or I shouldn't be angry. I shouldn't have negative feelings. I shouldn't be, I'm spiritual, so I can't express or expose any of my shadows, and bypassing wears a lot of disguises. And one of the most convincing ones is service. Because how do you question someone who's always helping? Like, how could I question myself when, how do you even begin to question yourself? You don't see it as avoiding something. You don't see it as you see it, it's recognized as generosity. And I know I certainly didn't. I didn't see it as that I was avoiding the anger that was still sitting unexpressed inside of me. I didn't I didn't question my generosity. I didn't question this feeling that I had deep inside of me to help and support others. I never questioned it. I never questioned it because I never looked at what was running it. Now, this is again, we avoid, right? Sometimes we avoid, but sometimes we can do it consciously. We can avoid looking at ourselves. But what I'm talking about here is what was unconsciously not even being recognized. I never questioned. I love helping people, and I still do to this day. Like, I love helping people. That hasn't gone away. I'm not talking about this in sense of like, oh, you're helping other people, and once you get this all cleaned up for yourself and you unravel the conditioning and you shift within the paradigms, that now you're not going to help other people anymore. That's not the case. I mean, this is where I know, deep at the soul level, that this is what I'm called to do. This is a big part. Being of service, helping others is a part of my dharma, and I honor it, and I know, and it fulfills me in a very deeply. That being said, but where was it operating from? Because for me, in questioning it and just seeing this as this helping and being generous and being there for everyone, or being busy, being that needed, meant that I never had time to stop long enough to even check in to what I was feeling. I never addressed what was my own unmet needs. I never had the chance to address my own grief. And this is especially important as a medium and in doing readings and sitting with people as they move through their own losses, that helping others was, again, this bypassing that. And again, unconsciously, where I hadn't really got into the depths of my own loss and the depths of my own grief. Um, my questions about, I never questioned what I truly wanted for my life, because I had never separated myself out from what everyone else wanted from me. So helping is what kept me in motion. And in motion, it's a very effective way to avoid stillness, because in stillness is where that truth usually lives. So this is the unconscious paradigm at work. It is the belief system, it's the formed form of protection that ends up costing what is access to who we are, access to yourself. And the other thing that it creates, is this barrier of receiving. This is where it gets even more layered, right? Because the pattern doesn't just cost access to connect this access or connection to who we are. It it creates a barrier or block in our capacity to receive. Now, think about what it actually takes to receive something, okay? So, we can receive love, we can receive support, we can receive guidance, we can receive information from those connections to the spirit world. Receiving requires an internal openness. It requires one believing that you're worthy of being met, and that you're worthy of being given to, and that you're worthy of rest. Because the entire identity of who we've believed ourselves to be as helpers has been built around the been built around the giver, the helper, the one that holds everything together, right? And so it makes receiving incredibly challenging. In fact, it might even feel a little bit unbearable. It's like it threatens the whole structure. If I'm not the strong one, if I'm not the capable one, if I'm not useful, well, then who am I? Right. And that's a question that's like, whoa, this gets into some really uncomfortable territory because in questioning those things, I mean, our whole identity, as I said, has been created based on how we've helped other people, the conditions within the relationships that are even close to us, because we've helped, we've given, we've overextended ourselves. That forms the conditions of relationship. And so if we change and we're no longer you know, living from the place of overgiving and overdoing for others, where we've always put our own needs on the back burner or we didn't even recognize we had needs. If we've always been helpful and we stop showing up when people need us and we start saying no instead of saying yes, we start prioritizing ourselves in the equation of our own life, it begins to change the conditions in the very relationships that actually matter to us. So, as I said, this is where receiving the thought of it, really almost becomes unbearable. It's like we can't even think of not doing those things because of the impact that it would have or the fear of who would no longer maybe love and accept us based on the conditions we've built of being the helper, the giver, the useful one. I think this is also where I see so many deeply gifted, deeply connected women, mediums really struggle to receive that clear guidance or those clear impressions from the spirit world because it's not that spirit's not there. It's not that the connection to the unseen world isn't there. It's just that the inability to fully receive because of the conditions in which the person has adapted. Um, it's like the nervous system becomes so busy because it's scanning constantly. What does everyone else need? What's coming next? Who needs me? That there's no spaciousness left to receive what's trying to come through from the other side. And mediumship at its core requires stillness and receptivity. And we can't really hear what spirit is offering if every ounce of our attention has been conditioned or trained outward in service to staying safe, in being useful, in being helpful to other people. The whole energy system and nervous system is entangled in an outward direction. So we can say the same thing, is here for true, in true for love. If you believe that, underneath everything, that you're not valuable unless what you're doing for other people, that you will unconsciously reject love that isn't earned. I'm going to say that again. If you are only valuable for what you do for others, you will unconsciously reject love that isn't earned. You'll deflect it, you'll minimize it, you'll be uncomfortable from the inside out because love, it's like the belief systems here, or you could say even what sits within the energy openness and spaciousness of receiving, because simply being loved for just existing, being loved fully for who you are, contradicts the entire paradigm that has been built in order for you to survive. The same is true about abundance and success. Abundance asks you to receive without overcompensating for it, without overdoing, without overfunctioning. But if your worth has always been proven through effort, through doing, through being needed, then ease, everything within ease and flow can feel dangerous. And that's where some part of you may also sabotage rest, sabotage that flow, sabotage receiving, because receiving without earning it, receiving without doing something, being helpful, it it doesn't compute. It doesn't compute because of the old paradigm. So it has to be interrupted at the identity level. As I said earlier, this isn't just about behavior. This is about what exists within the information that is being held within the energetic atmosphere of what's sitting within the unconscious that we may not even be aware of. So let's talk now about what actually shifts this because, okay, we have, again, you've heard me say, because awareness alone isn't enough. Awareness is the beginning. With awareness, we're over, we're 50% along on our path. But what changes the pattern is what we do with it, with the information once we see it, right? So if we look at this from a disempowered state, this is where the energy is contractive. This is its reaction. It's the whole system, as I said, scanning for threat. It's moving really fast. It's the seeking of validation in order to regulate a sense of oneself and a sense of safety. And the energy that's been created from that disempowered state of within that functioning paradigm, that's fear-based. And as I said, it's dressed up as generosity or it's just dressed up as love, but it also is where exhaustion can come from because it's not sourced from truth, it's sourced from survival. And any energy sourced from survival will always eventually deplete you, no matter how noble, no matter how wonderful it looks from the outside, or how good, how maybe falsely you might feel that fulfilled by helping others in some way. If it's sourced from survival, if it's an energy sourced from survival, it will eventually deplete you. You eventually will feel exhausted, tired, burned out, even get resentful in for the very thing that you actually were enjoy doing, which was helping others. So when you are in the empowered state or on it's like when we get above the paradigm, this is where now it's expansive instead of contractive. It moves from choice from rather than from compulsion, which means now from an empowered state, we can choose to help someone or we can choose to say no, right? That's an empowered state. So we're not this isn't a compulsion. This isn't this automatic unconscious behavior that in helping others where we're saying yes to everyone else and no to ourselves, where this becomes balanced. Which means, as I said, this doesn't mean you stop helping people. In fact, from an empowered state, you can still help other people. You can still be generous. You can still be present for the people you love. It just means that helping is coming from overflow instead of fear. And so here there's no cost to the nervous system. There's no cost anymore to the energy system because it's like you're not trying to prove worthiness or perform it in any way. You already have it. You already are it. And it's a completely different energy. And in fact, there is an incredibly different energy between giving to prove you're worthy of staying, of being loved, and giving because you have something real to offer that also comes with the freedom to choose it. One depletes and one actually generates even more capacity to give because that's alignment. Because with alignment, we are aligned with our truth, the deeper truth of who we truly are, the truth of our own divine nature, the truth of what is our divine inheritance, rather than operating from conditioning. So moving from one state to the other, it really starts with recognizing the paradigm without shaming ourselves either for having built it. I mean, this is about compassion because it was an it w this helping to survive identity served you, it served me. It's what kept me safe, it's what kept my whole system safe when safety was not guaranteed. It's very intelligent. Our human is very adaptive, and it doesn't, it doesn't need to be rejected, it doesn't need to, no shaming of ourselves with it. This is compassion. It needs to be honored and then gently released so that something truer can take place. And when I say something truer, not according to what the mind justifies or believes is true, but the deeper truth inside can begin to take place. And so part of the release isn't just about, I mean, it is. Yes, we need to look at shifting through the belief systems, the paradigms, looking at what's holding, what we've inherited and what we're holding on to that isn't really ours, what we've adapted, what we've unconsciously taken on as stories and understanding of ourselves. The big part of it. So yes, we need to dive into doing all of that work. But one of the other most important things is that part of releasing this is learning how to tolerate receiving, practicing letting people help you without immediately needing to reciprocate because rebalancing feels uncomfortable. And as soon as someone helps, it's like, yeah, "Can I help you?" "Yes, of course. What can I do for you?" Someone pays you a compliment, you immediately give them a compliment back. Someone buys you a gift, well, now you need to gift them something back in exchange because receiving can be very uncomfortable. And that's why I said we have to learn how to tolerate receiving and how to not immediately reciprocate because of the imbalance. So practice letting people help you. Yes, I know, even from myself, like, it's like I can hear everyone saying, or I know the stories that sit there because it was like, I'll just do it myself because then I know it's gonna get done. Or I don't wanna bother anyone because they're busy. I can take care of this myself. Needing help or asking for help, there's a scope of vulnerability here, and being vulnerable can sometimes not be safe, especially when the early conditioning has led us to believe that helping is what keeps us safe. So you can see how letting someone help you feels very unsafe to the system, very unsafe to the mind, very unsafe, because it's challenging the identity that of who we've known ourselves to be. Okay? So part of it is learning how to tolerate receiving, learning how to be uncomfortable with people helping us. The second is practicing stillness. This is big. Meditating just for meditation's sake without needing to get anything out of it. Practicing stillness without needing to fill it with being productive. To just sit on a park bench for no other reason than to sit on the park bench. To sit in meditation for no other reason but to sit with yourself. It also comes from practicing this, what do I actually need right now? And stopping throughout the day and asking yourself those questions because we get so caught up in doing things and helping and engaged because it's this compulsion inside of us that we never stop to check in. So here again, just giving yourself, this is one thing that I can admit that I've become very good at. I used to be the good girl and now I've become very good at asking myself when I feel overwhelmed, when I feel overtaxed, when I'm starting to feel my system almost shutting down around me, when I just feel so absorbed by the world around me, I've become very good at asking myself, what do I actually need right now? And then trusting that the answer that is there, the answer that comes up, it's like, I'm going to act on that answer. Because sometimes what I actually need right now is to eat. I had been so busy and so doing and helping and had, so consumed by what I was doing that I forgot that I needed to eat. I hadn't even eaten yet today. And this is one I said I'm getting good at actually asking myself that question. I'm not really getting good at remembering to eat, which I know, when you get caught up in the energy of service, there's a different kind of, we're being fed in a different way. And there's joy in that. But when there is a disruption in my system, when I'm exhausted, when I'm overwhelmed, when I'm reactive to something, where I'm a pretty easy go with the flow person. So if I get reactive to something, it becomes this question of what do I actually need right now? And then moving and acting upon doing something to support those needs, which means that what do I actually need right now is like, frick, I'm tired. I just, I just need to close my eyes for 10 minutes. I give myself permission to close my eyes for 10 minutes. And we do this because this has become this is this it's like if no one else takes care of us in this way, no one else ever will take care of us in this way. So being able to be there for ourselves matters. And so practicing receiving, practicing letting other people help us, practicing what do I actually need right now, and then being there for ourselves in those small little ways. You see, because the biggest thing here, and again, you've heard me say this time and time again, our worthiness, from a state of worthiness, we are in overflow. But our conditioning leads us to believe that we are only worthy if we're helping others, or we're worthy. Like worthiness needs to be earned. Like it's not, we don't sometimes recognize our innate worthiness for rest. You know, it's, I can sit, I have permission. It's okay for me to sit and close my eyes for 10 minutes. It's like worthiness actually was never in question. It was never something that that I had to earn through hauling those bales. It was not something that I needed to earn from cleaning the house without being asked. It was not something I needed to earn by being everyone else's steady place to land. That belief was conditioning, not truth, because the truth is underneath it. The truth had always been there, that I had been worthy of love, I had been worthy of rest, I'd been worthy of joy, I've been worthy of success, I've been worthy of everything before I ever needed to do anything to prove it. And that's the spiritual truth here, that it's like we've had it all along. And the only reason it's been hard to receive is because we get so busy helping other people, holding everyone else up, that our hands are too busy to put our own out to reach for help, right? So this week, I invite you, my friends, to just notice in your life, where are you maybe hiding? Maybe hiding is not the right word. Where where are you using usefulness as a way of avoiding your own needs? How have you been staying busy helping other people in order to avoid maybe your own grief? Or maybe staying busy through this conditioning that that has prevented you from actually remembering who you are, what you're worthy of, your own needs. So I just invite you to notice, where in your life are you actually hiding what's going on inside of you by helping others? As I said earlier, it doesn't mean you have to stop helping. It just means that you begin to start asking whether, when you go to help someone, are you Is the action of helping someone coming from love, or is it coming from fear that's wearing love's clothing? Where are your acts of service coming from? From love or from fear? And I say fear wearing love's clothing because of how I know for myself, I believed it was being generous of me. It was, it still is, but it's just a different energy. It's coming from a different source. I'm no longer sourcing it from helping others from a place of fear, but sourcing it from the overflow. Okay. All right. Well, that's it for today. Of course, I'll see you here next week. If something that I shared here today really landed for you, please reach out. Let me know if you feel this episode would be helpful for someone in your life. Please feel free to share it. Of course, I'm always here for anything I can do to help support you on your way through in your life. So remember, irregardless of the challenges out there, there is always a way through. There is always another perspective and always someone waiting to support and hold space. So, from my heart to yours, and until next week, sweet friends.